The F8E Crusader, the last gunfighter. It's a rank 7, battle rating 10.3 fighter, preceding the F4J Phantom II. It has 4 20mm cannons with a healthy amount of ammunition, the ability to carry 4 air-to-air missiles, and those 4 air-to-air missiles could be AIM-9Bs, AIM-9Cs, or AIM-9Ds, or a combination of the AIM-9Cs and AIM-9Ds together. The F8E has a very unique and honestly kind of bizarre feature in which you can tilt the entire wing up a few degrees, providing a huge amount of lift for takeoff and landing on aircraft carriers. It's not very useful for War Thunder, but it is really cool nonetheless. Now, real quick, I want to give a brief overview of the missiles that this plane can equip. You get either AIM-9Cs or AIM-9Ds. The AIM-9C is the same missile as the AIM-9D, only it's a semi-active radar homing missile, just like an AIM-7 Sparrow. This allows for head-on engagement as opposed to rear aspect only. The AIM-9D is the IR, or heat-seeking version of the AIM-9C. Both of these missiles have an 18G maximum overload, which is much better than previous AIM-9s, and when you fire these missiles, they lead your target a lot more than earlier versions of the AIM-9. Or well, I guess any other AIM-9 that's currently in-game. In some situations, this can be an advantage, but in a lot of other situations, it's honestly worse than having a missile that more or less follows the aircraft you're shooting it at than leads a whole lot. Because these missiles lead so much, it makes them really easy to dodge, and all it really takes by your opponent that you fired it at to turn in the opposite direction that the missile is going. And honestly, most of the time, they don't even need to fire off flares. That's not to say that these missiles aren't useful, there are just better ones at this battle rating. Especially when you get up tiered, because that's when you're seeing the best missiles in the game. From what I've gathered on forums and other YouTube's videos, it seems like most people want to solely use the AIM-9Ds, but a lot of the time I will take the mixture of the AIM-9Ds and AIM-9Cs. A lot of it has to do with whether or not I get up tiered and the map that I'm playing. Like, for example, if I get one of the Enduring Confrontation maps, one of the really huge ones, I will take 2 AIM-9Cs with my AIM-9Ds, just because a lot of the times you'll get people who aren't really paying attention, or have gone AFK while they climb towards the middle of the map, and it has resulted in some good kills. Now, let's talk about the Matchmaker at 10.3. It is a very mixed bag. It seems like the odds of an up tier versus a down tier were about 50-50 in my time playing this aircraft, which, considering Gaijin's matchmaking reputation, isn't too bad. In a down tier, the scariest aircraft you will face are aircraft like the early MiG-21s, mainly the F-13, SMT, and MF, and you'll run into some A-5Cs as well. You'll also see aircraft as low as the few Sabres that are at 9.3 and that one CL-13 that's at 9.7, which obviously they should not be there, that's like common knowledge at this point. And as for aircraft you fight alongside with, mainly going to consist of F-5Cs, AV-8 Harriers, F-4Cs, F-105s, etc. And as far as up tiers go, you're going to get your usuals, Your team's probably going to be full of Phantoms, maybe an F-5E, F-5C, and the other team is going to be full of MiG-23s and MiG-21 Biz, and a few other like ground attack type planes sprinkled in there as well. Now on to the flight performance of the F8E. It's honestly quite well rounded. It does most things pretty well, which is awesome when you get into a down tier. But if you get an up tier, you don't really have many clear advantages over your opponents except for maybe your maneuverability. It turns just as well with the best turning aircraft at top tier, but the F5E and MiG-23 MLD will definitely give you a run for your money. I personally find well-rounded aircraft like this to be pretty difficult to win sustained dogfights with. However, that would probably come with a bit more practice with this aircraft, but I don't really like playing a single aircraft for long periods of time. I honestly get kind of bored after spading it, and then I usually move on to something else, except for a few select aircraft in the game. So with all of that said, how do I play the F8E Crusader? Well, honestly, it depends on the matchmaker. If I get down tiered, I tend to play pretty aggressively. I'll climb straight towards the opposing team, and then maybe take a couple head-ons and try to get some early kills as quickly as possible. I definitely tend to use my guns a lot more in a down tier. I get much more up close and personal with the enemy in dogfights, and the guns perform quite well since you've got 4 of them. And whenever I get an up tier, I try to fly off to the side of the map for a bit. I don't necessarily climb that high, I'll get to maybe 2 or 3 kilometers off the ground, and I await for the 11.3 cluster fight to begin. Then I'll try and head in and try and pick off a few people at low speed, or get people who are hyper-focused on one of my teammates. A lot of the time, you can do okay in 11.3 top-tier matches. It's definitely doable, but it's also quite difficult. Now, after all of that, I do have one match I want to show you. Honestly, it was a really good match. It just had a really frustrating ending, but it was no one else's fault but my own. I honestly thought if I didn't really screw this up, I probably could have won this. But, you know, it's War Thunder. You win some, you lose some. So, now, my first engagement of the match. MiG-21 going head on with me. I'm going to shoot off an AIM-9C, and it is going to connect beautifully, getting me my first kill. A Mirage pitches up after me, but I'm not too worried about him. I believe my teammate's going to clean him up very nicely. Now I got my eye on the furball, and I start heading my way there. MiG-19 goes head on with me. Neither of us get any hits, which is fine. I continue to keep my nose down, going towards all the enemy players. Notice the second MiG-19 that might be going heads on with me. Take a bit of a risky shot here. I thought he might have get his guns on me, but he didn't, luckily, and it's going to end up giving me a kill. Now I'm trying to pull away from the furball a little bit, kind of gain my bearings, trying to get my eye on what's going on. The J-35, that's about 3.5 kilometers behind me, shoots a missile at me, but that's nothing a couple flares can't solve. The missiles that come with that plane are not very good, so not going to be an issue getting that away from me. So now I point my nose back down, trying to see if I can get some shots or a missile on somebody else. Luckily for me, a Nesher basically puts himself in front of my guns, which is going to net me my third kill. So I begin to level out and try and gain my bearings once again, trying to get a feel from the situation of what's going on. I look behind me, and I got a MiG-21 SMT and a J-35A on my 6. They both shoot some missiles off at me, but that's not going to be an issue avoiding those. And for now I'm pulling away from the MiG-21, but I know that won't be the case for long. Those things accelerate very quickly. And now I don't really have many other options except to force a dogfight, so that's what I'm going to try and do. So I start pitching up, hoping that he'll follow, which he does. In retrospect, I probably should have tried just to force him to overshoot and try and get a gun kill on him, but he ends up pulling off anyway. I guess he was afraid I was going to win the raid fight, and I honestly am not sure if I was going to. I know it probably would have been pretty close, but either way, I guess he didn't want to deal with it. So as I start to pull off and decide what I want to do, I look up and to my left and see an F-104 starfighter coming right for me. So I try and get out of the way of that Vulcan as fast as possible because that thing is deadly. So after that F-104 makes a pass on me, I notice in front of me a MiG-21 at a fairly low speed. I fire off one of my AIM-9Ds here, which I probably shouldn't have at all because there was really no chance of this hitting. I kind of just did it. I don't really know why, but I did. When all I had to do was just try and go for the gun kill. So he ends up going straight in front of me. I kind of had hopes that he didn't notice my missile, so I fire off a second one right here, which also is going to do absolutely nothing. Now I look behind me and notice the MiG-21 from earlier is once again on my 6. While I have my eyes on that MiG-21, the F-104 from a second ago comes back, spraying at me, and luckily he misses all of the shots. And right after I get out of the way of his guns, my teammate takes out the MiG-21 that was on my tail. And then, oh, look at that, another MiG-21 coming right at me. He kind of dives under me and I get a shot off, setting him on fire, which will give me kill number 4. Now all I'm going to do is skip forward about 3 or 4 minutes, just because all that happened right after I got that last kill was me chasing an F-104, and obviously the F-104 is much faster than the F8E, so I ended up just returning to base and taking off again. So not too long after getting in the air, I run into 2 J-35s with the F-104 nowhere to be found. Take a quick head-on with the second J-35 after shooting an AIM-9C and missing on the first one that was coming straight at me. Unfortunately, it doesn't result in a kill. I think he ended up getting back to his base and repairing. So to save a little time, I'm going to cut forward 1 or 2 minutes to get to where we are now. So 1 J-35A on my tail. I cut my afterburner because I'm going to try and make him overshoot. No air brake needed. Probably would have been a little too much if I did use it. And now I am successfully on his 6. Fire off a few shots. After all, I have plenty of ammo, so spraying isn't really going to hurt me at all. He takes a dive to try and get away from me, but I am going to catch up to him fairly quickly. Cut my throttle there for a second because I didn't want to catch up too quick, and I start trying to line up a shot. Shoot a couple bursts, and that's going to be my 5th and final kill of the match. Now, remember earlier when I said it was going to be a very frustrating and disappointing ending to this match? Well, you're about to see why. So I run into that F-104 starfighter from earlier, and my monkey brain decided it was a great idea to try and do a long-range head-on with this F-104. I don't die, but I take a substantial amount of damage. Nothing that's going to kill me, but it will still get me killed. So I ended up returning to my base. The F-104 did not pursue for some reason, which was cool with me. But remember how in the beginning I mentioned it had those really strange flaps mechanism that lifted the entire wing up? Well, as you see here, that combined with damaged wings and low airspeed is going to result in a crash, which kills me, which just throws the match. You know, just, it hurts, man. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty upset at myself for that one. However, it was still a really, really good match. I got 5 kills, and there was definitely no guarantee of me winning the match. I think it was still 1v3 or 1v2 maybe, but either way, I lost. And it's my fault completely. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. I really, genuinely like the F8E. It's really cool, has a really big, smiley mouth-looking face on it, and performs really, really well. And when you get bumped up to 11.3, you may not be able to compete with an MLD or an F5E or whatever, but you can definitely surprise people with the performance you do have. Its missiles are okay, but you have a really good gun armament to make up for what the missiles can't do. After all, it is named the Last Gunfighter. So on that note, guys, I will see you next time. Please like, subscribe, comment. Please tell me what I can do better with these videos. I really would like to know. Give me some suggestions or something. I don't know, even request a plane or something. Anyway, I'll see y'all next time. Hope you guys are doing well. Peace.